Hi, this is Craig Calvert, and what I came to realize is that, including myself, some people who deal with one-shot color camera data don't really have a good grasp on how to use PixelMath in PixInsight to modify the colors in the image. And so I'm going to show you an example using this here. This is the Eagle Nebula. I've done some post-processing, not a lot. I've done deconvolution, I reduced the noise, and I stretched it somewhat, and I removed the stars. And the reason why I removed the stars with StarNet 2 is because when I'm going to manipulate the colors in this nebula, I don't want to manipulate the colors in the stars also. So I remove it, the stars, and then I can add them back later. So we're going to do this as a starless image. And what I want to do is I want to modify the colors in this image. So how do you do that within PixInsight and using PixelMath? I did a previous video showing how you can do that using the actual extracted RGB channels as masks. And I'm not going to do that this time. I'm going to try a different approach. But I am going to extract the channels using this button right here. I've already done that. There's my blue, there's my green, and there's my red. And what you can see is predominantly red, as you might expect. But you can also see some blue and some green, and notice where they are. They're where the lighter portions of this image are. And the reason it's lighter is not because there's less color, but because there's more color. And that more color is a little more red. You can see it's very bright there, but it's also where your blue and green is. And so that's not uncommon with these emission nebula. If you see a bright region, don't be surprised if that's where your blue and green colors actually are. So what I want to do is I want to try a few things here using PixelMath. And I'll tell you up front, it's not intuitive. And I'll give you some examples. So let's get PixelMath going here. And in order to do this, you have to uncheck this because you're not going to use a single RGB expression. You're going to assign all three of the channels in this case. And if I went and, for example, did something very simple, very basic, and in the red channel, I'm going to assign the red, extracted red. In the green channel, I'll assign the green, and in the blue channel I'll assign the blue. And then I say, okay, what's that going to produce? Well, it's going to produce exactly what I have here. Now I can create a new image. I'm just going to replace this one, and I'm going to replace it with exactly itself, and so it didn't change, right? So let's see what we want to do here. Let's say, for example, this is very white. Let's say I want it to look more blue. How would I do that? Well, I want you to look at these, to think about it, I want you to look at these three extracted channels. And notice it's very, very rich in red, not so much in blue. So if we want to increase this, one might say, well, just go to blue and put a coefficient into it, like 2 times. 2 times blue. Well, what's that going to do? Well, that's going to double the intensity of this, and it's just going to make it even brighter. Probably not more blue. And let's for the heck of it, see what it does. Yeah, made the whole thing blue, but it very bright also. That's not what I want. So, okay, let's get rid of that. Okay, now I don't have to undo this, by the way, because I'm just changing these things, and when I apply, it's whatever these are, it's what it's going to create, but let's just get back anyway. Okay, so now, how do I make it more blue? Well, you make it more blue by decreasing the amount of red and maybe decreasing, to some degree, the amount of green. Now, you don't want to decrease too much green because you don't have much there anyway, so let's start with the red. So to do that, how do I decrease the red? Well, let's go into the red channel and say, how am I going to decrease only this part of the red? I don't want to decrease it out here. I want to decrease it there. Well, this is where I have the intensity. Why don't I subtract some blue. And I'll go to expression editor, under red, subtract, let's say 0.7. And you have to play with these coefficients. It's not obvious what it should be. You might want to do more, you might want to do less. But anyway, let's try that. So notice what I did. In order to increase blue here, I actually had to decrease the amount of red in that same region with subtraction. And let's see what happens. Well, look at that. It increased the blue. It has a little green in it. I don't want to do much with the green yet because I'll show you why. If I go and subtract blue from green, 0.5 times, I always do this. Go back to the expression editor and blue. What you'll see is you're going to get rid of the green. And there you go. Now it's just blue and red. So you don't want to do that. So let's leave green alone for now. Okay, just to show you, you don't have to undo. I just go back to where I was. All right, so now I want to do something with this red. Let's say I want to make it more orange, more orangey color, not so much of a red color. How would I do that? Well, if you think about the color spectrum, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, violet. Well, orange is right next to red, so it's mostly red. But if you go red, orange, yellow, green, there's a little bit of green in there also. So to mix some green in with the red, you will turn it to orange. Well, how am I going to do that? I don't want to get that thing. Oh, there we go. How am I going to do that? Well, would I say add green to red? If I added green to red, think about this now. I'm going to add green to red. What's that going to do? All it's going to do is brighten up the middle. It's not going to do anything out here. That's where I want the green to be. And to show you that, again, I will make the mistake of adding plus, say, 0.5 times the green. And what do you think is going to happen? Oops. Notice it became more red. I didn't make anything more green. I actually made it more red in the center. And the reason is I just added intensity in the center, that's where the green is, back to the red. Oh, I got the red back. Well, that wasn't good, so let's not do that. Okay, so how am I going to do it? Well, the way I'm going to do it is, again, this is why it's not intuitive. The way you have to increase the green out here is by adding the red to the green. So that way I'm putting some intensity, in this grayscale intensity, out here in the green channel. So I'm going to actually add red to green. Go to the expression editor this time. Plus, let's just say 0.5 times red. See what happens. Ooh, maybe I added too much. Let's decrease that a little bit to, let's say 0.3. Yeah, that's probably better. Okay. Now though, what have I done? I've done something else. I can go back and say, now this is a bit more green than I want it to be. Why is that? Well, I added some of the intensity of the red in here and I made this even more intense and it overwhelmed the blue. So now I gotta get rid of some of that green. So how am I gonna do that? Well, how did I get rid of some of the red initially, right? I subtracted blue from red. So now let's go back to the green and let's subtract blue from green. Minus 0.5 times expression editor blue. All right, so now what I'm saying is, it's too green in here. There's too much intensity in this green. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to take 50% of that intensity and I'm subtract it from what's there. All right? Make it less green in the middle. Okay, that kind of worked. But it's kind of dull in there. It's not quite what I want. Maybe, I don't know if that's too red or too green. Let me say, let's just say I want that a little more orange. Now remember what I did to make it orange to begin with. I added some of the red to the green. So I'm still in green, so let's try making this 0.4. And, okay, I like that color out here better. And that's not too bad, but let's notice how I'm iterating. Let's say, let's do the same thing. Now I want to subtract maybe 0.6 of this intensity from the green to make it more blue. I'm just iterating back and forth. Okay, there we go. Now let's say this isn't quite intense enough, and I want it a little more blue. You can do this. Let's say 1.03 times that. So what it's going to do is it's going to increase, because I haven't done anything to the blue yet. This is the first thing I'm doing to the blue. It's going to increase this by 30%. See what happens. Hey, a little more blue. Okay. So anyway, that's how you manipulate it. So what have we learned? I think, what have we learned? Hopefully we've learned. In order to change a color, for example, when we went and said, I want less red in the middle. The only way we can do that is by taking this and subtracting that intensity or some portion of that intensity based on the coefficient from the center of this. By subtracting that from the red, and that's what we initially did, which we, in this case, 70% of that intensity. And again, if I wanted to do 80% for the fun of it, and then even more blue, I can do that, all right? What else did we learn? Well, when I wanted to make this more orange, well, because I had to add green, but there's only green in the center. So how am I going to add more green? Well, I have to, only place I have anything that is not in the center part of the nebula is with red. So I have to add some of this red to the green. Is that correct? So what did I do? I added red to the green and made it a little more orange. And again, if I wanted to make it even more orange, I can go make a 0.5, and it made it more orange. I'm sort of, remember, I'm adding red, orange, yellow, green. That's getting more toward the yellow now. Maybe you didn't want that, but maybe you do. Maybe you like that, okay? And then I said, well, if I just wanted to intensify, in this case, the blue, because I hadn't done anything to it. It was still wasn't quite blue enough. I just went 1.3, and if I went 1.4, I'm going to intensify it even more. Okay, so what have I done? What have I done? Let me put that away. So I started with this, and now I'm here. And it didn't take long. And it's a little bit of iteration, a little bit of trial and error in terms of choosing your coefficients, but just understand how this works. Making green more orange doesn't mean making red rather more orange does not mean adding green to red, because that just intensifies here. It means adding red to the green and getting more out here, because this is, though it is red, it is the red channel. I am taking the red channel and I'm making part of it at least the green channel. So, and to show you that, let's take this image and extract the RGB, compare it with the original ones. Okay, we didn't do much with blue, remember? Let me get these down here. I didn't do much with the blue. I just intensified it by a certain, what I do, what's the percentage? By 1.40%. This is just 40% more intense. Okay, now let's look at the green. And, oops, didn't mean to do that. Green. Wow. Remember, I added some of the red to the green, and now the green channel looks a bit more like the original red channel looked. And it had to, because I want to mix the red and the green out here to make it more of a, in this case, yellow-orange. Okay. And the red, well, I know one thing, I reduced this significantly out here. That's mostly what I did, because let's see what we did to the red channel. Red channel, we took this and we just took a lot of the blue, 80% of this intensity, and removed it. So basically all you're going to see, this should look the same out here, but this should look rather less intense and quite a bit less intense. So we created new channels, new color channels in that process. Now, let's say you're not done. You don't have to be done. So you can go get, for example, your histogram transform if you want to. And let's look at the blue. Maybe there's a little bit of blue. I don't know. Let's reduce the blue a little bit. There. I can see what it's doing. Okay, and then maybe the green also. Let's see. Let's do the blue first. Okay, now green's okay. I'm okay with blue. And red, whatever. But I can play with it. I can also go and then get the curves transform, process the curves transform if I wanted to, and I could play around with. I could play around with I could play around with amount of lightness. I could also play around with saturation if I want to. Move it, apply it, and there you go. So that's pretty easy. It's not difficult. Perhaps the thing that you need to be most cautious of, the thing that we started with, and that's what we ended with. Things you have to be most cautious of is a couple of things. I'd stretch it first to try to enhance where the colors are, and the background, try to reduce it somewhat so that you don't have a lot of color out there that you don't end up wanting. The second, I would make sure that it's clean of noise. And this is the notorious one, the blue channel. Well, that's pretty much it. You might not like that, that's okay. It wasn't intended to be the final product in terms of what I like either. It was a demonstration on how to do this. I hope you learned something, and I appreciate it. Take care.